Get in the game with NFL Sunday Ticket from Rev TV. You'll get every game every Sunday afternoon from around the league. Plus, NFL Sunday Ticket gives you up to 8 live games on one screen with Game Mix. You'll get that died and woke up in football heaven experience when you upgrade to NFL Sunday Ticket Deluxe, including Red Zone, the channel dedicated to every scoring play from every game. And if you add Rev TV HD to NFL Sunday Ticket Deluxe, you'll be entered to win big weekly prizes with NFL Wildcard Mania. Get in the game with NFL Sunday Ticket.
More money and more problems for BEC customers. What web shops are saying about the new gaming bill, plus education officials are singing a new tune. We've got those stories and a whole lot more coming up tonight. I'm Juanita Toot and NB12 starts now. Topping news tonight, more unforeseen problems for the Bahamas Electricity Corporation as 3 of its 9 generators fail and fuel becomes an issue. BEC's executive chairman says there could be more load shedding over the weekend. And to make matters worse, he says there will be an increase in the fuel surcharge on your next electricity bill. Kyle Joaquin has the story.
I would just ask them to just hold on a little longer. The government needs to get this RFP situation finished and done with. A water contract to one of the reputable international firms that can do the job, and then get it done.
Those are the words of BEC Executive Chairman Leslie Miller, who today urged Bahamians to have more patience as the cash-strapped corporation experiences what he calls extremely tough times. At the moment, BEC has 3 generators down at its Clifton Pier plant. Miller describes those engines as the workhorses. But over the past 2 days, those engines have caused issues for BEC and its consumers.
We are hoping that, well, he's saying now tomorrow, we're hoping that this evening 10 would have been up. If 10 isn't up, in fact, we're load shedding now because we also have a problem at Blue Hills. So this is going to continue. The problem at Blue Hills, they have a problem with I understand, one of the fuel pumps at Blue Hills on one of the engines that they have to change. Hopefully that will be done today. But I showed you the size of those engines. I want you to appreciate that, these are not little bitty car engines or tracked engines. They are 3-story engines. These are massive, massive machines.
Now this is just one of the engines that is not working. If you look to my left, you can see the workers trying to fix the pistons that came out of this engine. They say it takes about 3 to 5 hours for the engine to cool down before they can even begin to try and fix it.
Miller says people don't understand what goes into fixing the problem. He told reporters sometimes it takes up to 30 days just to get a part into Nassau. That in addition to workers having to wait sometimes up to 8 hours just for an engine to cool down from as high as 400 degrees so it can be fixed. There are currently 4 workers in from BWSC, a power plant construction company in Denmark, to try and fix the engines. John Hansen is the project manager. He told reporters today that the main reason the engines continue to break down is the fuel BEC is using contains harmful components.
The main issue here is the fuel oil. We have had some very bad delivery of fuel oil, which have some cat fines in it. Cat fines is some used at the refinery to get more of the lighter components out of the fuel. And if they are carried over here, it's more or less the same as sandpaper. When we put it into the engine, we wear out the engines very fast.
He says they end up having to clean the oil they get. However, that still doesn't remove all the harmful products. Additionally, Miller says BEC doesn't have the reserve capacity needed to supply the whole of New Providence. He said even 2 of the smaller engines which are used as backup broke down at one point today.
The whole equation here, we could bring down the cost of electricity in New Providence by 20% if we were to have a new plant installed, because we would save right away $100 to $120 million in fuel alone. This isn't no rocket science. Anyone with a brain in the head could figure this out. If Clifton uses less fuel and cheaper fuel than Blue Hills, why would you run Blue Hills? You would put your emphasis and your money at Clifton.
Some residents in southern New Providence say their power went out more than 20 times yesterday. One consumer told NB12 that this is the worst summer she's ever had to endure with BEC. She added that even her refrigerator malfunctioned. Despite all this, Miller says consumers will notice an increase in the fuel surcharge on their next light bill.
I'll tell you something else that you all should know. Whenever we run in Blue Hills at full capacity as we are doing now, it's causing the Bahamian people an extra $250,000 a day in fuel alone. Those engines burn $10,000 of fuel per hour. Oh, it's going to go up, oh yeah, tremendously.
The rental generators that BEC once used, Miller said, are out of the question as they cost $1 million per month. He says the corporation is working on bringing in new engines to meet the demand for Bahamar.
Miller is again stressing his point that BEC needs a new Clifton Pier plant, and he says it's not until they get that plant that the issue will be fully resolved. But for now, reporting from BEC's Clifton Pier plant, for NB12, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Web shop bosses aren't too pleased with certain portions of the new gaming bill and regulations tabled this week. Attorney Wayne Monroe, who represents several web shop owners, says government ignored some of his clients' requests. However, he says they are scrambling to prepare those businesses for the regularization process. Jasmine Brown reports.
Despite being disappointed in several aspects of the bill, including taxes, penalties, and discrimination, Monroe says web shop bosses are scrambling to fall in line.
Monroe says some web shop bosses do not support portions of the bill that prevent tourists from patronizing numbers houses and what he called the unbalanced tax rates between web shops and casinos. According to the regulations, web shops will be taxed at a rate of 11%, while casinos are taxed at around 5%. Monroe has previously gone on record saying he believes web shops and casinos should have an equal tax structure. However, the web shop attorney said the government clearly ignored that argument.
That we didn't like, that we made representations against, and again the government wasn't persuaded about that.
Monroe said web shops are also questioning the government's decision, which requires web shop operators to pay back taxes for 6 years. According to Section 85 of the gaming bill, web shops will be required to pay business license fees in addition to gaming taxes for that period in lieu of taxes which would have been payable had businesses been licensed under the Act. While they disagree, Monroe says he has not been advised to take legal action.
We're not pleased. I've not received any indication that anyone is going to issue any instructions for me to challenge anything that's in the bill so far, although they are not pleased with it. You have to make a judgment whether or not you are going to litigate over something or not. My clients aren't adopting that sort of attitude. To be clear, the argument was that they declared the regulated business, and the business that was done on the internet was not. And whether that's captured by business license or not, you're not going to have a big row about that, because their position will be, again, they are Bahamians. Rightly or wrongly, they understand, and they must understand as Bahamian businessmen, why the government is seeking new tax revenue.
In the meantime, he says his clients are already engaged in the process of readying their businesses for regularization.
The regularization process will require them, if you want to be regularized, to continue to operate during the transitional period. You're going to have to give the government this information. It is not a choice. If you don't want to give the government the information, it's simple. You close down your business. But if you wish to continue in business during the transitional period, you're going to have to give the government the information. You're going to have to pay the back 6 years business license. You're going to have to pay the other amount. And mark you, this is before you even know whether you're going to get a license.
In doing so, he said his clients are now drawing up the necessary job descriptions and reviewing their budgets.
I suspect that you will see shortly advertisements for vacancies for the different job areas that will now be created in the web shops that are now regulated.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Brown.
And Free National Movement Deputy Chairman Dr. Dwayne Sands says the new gaming bill is nothing short of an abomination filled with drivel. He says the bill has been tailored for certain people and took issue with the provision that gives the minister responsible for gaming control over gambling access, asserting that one person should not possess that amount of power.
The only word that comes to mind with the various components of this bill is that it is nothing short of an abomination. I think this government should be ashamed for what it's attempting to do.
The new bill contains a provision that would allow the minister responsible for gaming to override discriminatory elements in the bill that prohibit Bahamians from gambling in casinos and foreigners from gambling in web shops. Tourism Minister Obi Wilshcombe said yesterday government would make use of that provision as soon as possible after conducting research. However, Sands says he finds it unbelievable.
Not only would you, on the one hand, maintain discrimination in 2014, but you would then entrench unbelievable power in the hands of one man to make the decision, to be judge and jury, to determine the fitness or appropriateness of who ought to or who ought not to gamble.
Section 69, subsection 6 of the bill states, notwithstanding the provision of subsections 4 and 5, the minister may make regulations permitting participation in the types of gaming contemplated by any category or all categories of persons. The F&M deputy chairman says the language is awfully convoluted.
This is legislative twister. You remember that game? So, left hand on yellow 3, right foot on green in the corner. They are twisting themselves in a knot, trying to please everybody. And there's not a single fundamental principle that is directed at the benefit of Bahamian people.
Sands says the gaming bill has been tailored for specific persons and specific purposes. At the end of the day, he says, Bahamians still won't get to enjoy the same privileges as foreigners.
I doubt it. Bear in mind that there's been phenomenal pushback from various quarters. If you believe, as I believe, that discrimination of any kind against Bahamians should not be in the law, then take it out. Don't put it in a law that says that Big Daddy or Big Brother or your friendly minister will decide whether you should and he shouldn't.
Tourism Minister Obi Wilshcombe says the Christie administration has no personal agenda for regulating web shops, but admits government owes an apology to those voters who feel misled. Both the opposition and Bahamas Christian Council have slammed the government for not abiding by the results of last year's failed gambling referendum. Wilshcombe says that was never their intention.
The truth is, we do owe an apology to the Bahamians who might think that they were misled. That was never the intention. We always wanted to find out where the Bahamians were on the issue. They voted in the referendum. Subsequent to the referendum, though, we learned some other important information that required us to make another decision. So we had to make that decision. But for those who feel as if we were not as frank with them, that was never the intention, because we work for the Bahamian people. And our decisions are in the interest of the Bahamian people. And I think we've made the best decision.
Wilshcombe, who has ministerial responsibility for gaming, says Bahamians will one day appreciate that no one in the Christie administration has a personal agenda as it relates to the regularization of web shops.
When you listen to the debate on the web shops, you have to appreciate that many Bahamians voted in a referendum and they said no. We were faced with difficult situations, particularly as it relates to our financial services sector. We had to make some other decisions. But I believe that Bahamians would eventually accept that the decision was made in the best interest of country as opposed to some personal agenda, because none of us have personal agendas as it relates to web shops.
When NB12 returns, government to meet with banks over the gaming bill. Those details on the other side of the break.